Coming up, remember celebrating Christmas as a kid? Trees with gobs of tinsel and big, bright lights, or more daring. It's time to rewind the holiday highlights, the ornaments, the caroling, and the first time you whispered a wish in Santa's ear. We unwrap the festive favorites of yesterday, ahead on Hey Remember Christmas. Welcome to Hey Remember Christmas. I'm Jill Cordes. Nothing has the power to bring back childhood memories like Christmas. Imagine the popcorn and cranberries, tinsel by the ton, strands of big blinking lights. It's all part of the Christmas we grew up with. So toss a log on the fire. We're about to jingle a few of your favorite memories. Think back on Christmas as a kid and what pops to mind? Well, there's the tree, the ornaments, and definitely the presents. But for most of us, Santa is the one who delivers the biggest sleighful of memories. We've grown up, but he hasn't changed in years. There's the red suit, the black belt, jolly,
rosy cheeks,
big
belly,
bouncing a lot. He always just seemed larger than life. With such a clear description, you learned to recognize Santa when you were just a tiny tot.
Here's Santa with his dancing, prancing reindeer.
Remember watching those Thanksgiving parades, eager for that first glimpse?
Oh, here he comes down the street. It's Santa Claus, and you're just like whipped into this frenzy. And almost immediately after that, you were escorted out to the shopping mall by your mom, where you could wait in line and meet Santa because he was officially in town.
So what do you remember about that first visit with Santa? Maybe you were one of those kids who was ready, but not necessarily willing.
I think when you're younger, it's a little bit scary.
I think I cried many times at Santa's lap.
I was bawling, reaching out for my mom. It's scary.
But it doesn't take long to warm up to Santa. I mean, what's not to like about the jolly guy bringing gifts?
He's Saint Nick, you know, he's the guy that brings all the presents. He's totally magical and supernatural.
In fact, a little too magical. Parents had us convinced he could see all.
Oh yes, parents were always, oh, if you don't behave, Santa's not going to bring you anything.
There was always the fear that you were going to get coal in your stocking.
Parents would use that all the time to keep you in line.
We knew we better watch out.
There was always the warning in the back of your head. You're naughty or you're nice, and Santa knows. because Santa was the one bringing the presents. He was the one I really wanted to impress.
You wanted to let Santa know you'd been good, so he'd bring the loot. But first, you had to make sure you were talking to the real deal. Santa had a few stand-ins from time to time, and one famous ball player was a real hit in the role.
Ah, yes, now we get it. The one and only Babe Ruth. And here comes the pitch.
I want a rabbit.
You want a rabbit?
Even for the great Bambino, Santa's boots can be tough to fill. But it was never the kids who worried about the whiskers.
Even the Santas that don't look perfect are still good Santas.
We knew exactly what Santa should look like, but just where did we get that idea?
Very few people realize that Santa Claus's history is actually a fairly short one.
The skinny Saint Nick, he's European. The fat jolly guy starts with an American drawing, but it's really an ad campaign for a soft drink that defined his look for good in the 30s and 40s.
And the Coca-Cola Santa is the Santa that we know is the real Santa.
So that's the cherry cheek Santa we grew up with, depicted in countless decorations. Remember the plush toys, the teapots, the cookie platters, and of course, the wind-up toys? Mom even used his image to serve up holiday cheer.
I'm sure that a parent would have used this and to pour milk or juice for.
From mugs to planters, candles to salt and pepper shakers, Santa was everywhere. And we mean everywhere.
Then there's like consumables. Toilet papers are always good.
Each decoration took a different twist on Santa, because once the basics are covered, we all like to tweak the image from time to time.
Absolutely. I mean, my mother looked for Santas that looked like our parents. And when we found a black Santa. It was so exciting. And so it was great to see Santa as family.
We did have Santa Claus. We call it Papa Noel. Yeah, he comes flying and lifts it on your shoes. You can't go through the chimney since we don't have one.
And that begs the question, what did Santa do in warm weather? Did he really need the fur or the fireplace?
The chimney no chimney thing was a bit of a dilemma.
No worries, Santa could use a door or a window. But next you had to wonder, how could he get his rounds done on time?
I definitely had friends that would try very hard to figure the whole thing out.
But the true believers never fret the details.
I don't want to know what a magician does, just any more than I don't want to know exactly how Santa Claus does it.
Somehow we knew he'd make it, so the stockings were ready and waiting.
And then the last ritual was putting out the cookies and the milk for Santa.
And some carrots for the reindeer, because you gotta think of the reindeer too. They're the working command, really, of the Santa hierarchy.
Anything to keep Santa happy, because your hopes were high as you tried to nod off to sleep. Then, in the wink of an eye, it was here.
And then the great day arrived.
Those stockings were stuffed with all the goodies. Remember the little reminders of himself that Santa left behind? Maybe a toothbrush, a yo-yo, or a Pez dispenser?
Santa would be the one to put little stocking stuffers in there so you'd remember, what Santa looked like when you wake up in the morning.
Santa tried hard, but he couldn't always hit the target.
But Santa made a grave mistake. He left the railroad train for Jackie. He should have left it for Daddy. Because fathers and mothers never grow up. Not on Christmas.
When you're a child at heart, it's hard to resist visiting Santa on memory lane.
He's the proverbial happy, jolly guy that maybe we all want to be.
Call him Father Christmas, Kris Kringle, or St. Nick. He's the one that delivers the toys, the treats, and a sack full of sweet dreams from holidays past. Speaking of Santa memories, did you know that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer didn't exist until 1939? He was introduced as part of a Montgomery Ward sales promotion. The song came out 10 years later, in 1949. Just ahead, choosing the family Christmas tree. You could go fresh cut or fake in a shimmery vision of mod. And don't forget the fake snow, trees, tinsel, and all the trimming. Ahead on Hey Remember Christmas. Welcome back to Hey Remember Christmas. I'm Jill Cordes. When it comes to symbols of the holiday season, nothing stands as tall as the Christmas tree. Now, hauling it into the house is a German tradition, but the aluminum tree, now that's an all-American twist. So what type of tree did you have as a kid? Chances are selecting the right one was a major family decision. From ceiling height to tabletop, fresh cut to fake, simple to all decked out, our Christmas tree choices were endless, and everyone had a preference.
In many lands, the Christmas celebration revolves around the decorated tree. And what a decision to make the right choice.
What is the right choice? It depends on the family.
Big, had to be at least 8 feet, meaning taller than we were.
We have to get the Douglas fir. At some phase, we had an aluminum tree.
I actually don't remember when we had a live tree.
I loved it. I still love it. It has to be the perfect tree.
So how far would your family go in that quest for perfection?
Well, of course, we started by going out and cutting it in the woods.
That trek through the woods was a little too much adventure for others.
I don't know. In my world, everything was acquired through shopping.
And here it is in the store at last. What a long journey this tree has had.
Even if you left all the hard work to the pros, just finding the right tree could be a chilling experience.
I want to say, I remember the wonderful memories of going out to pick out the tree. I was always miserable because it was always cold, and sometimes it would be snowing, and you'd be all bundled up. And I remember after a while just thinking, just get a tree, any tree, I don't care.
It In warmer climates, you might have warmer memories, but north or south, you still have to struggle to make the right choice.
Used to spend a lot of time. No, this one's not right. It's too thin here. You gotta watch out for the bald spot.
The tree was always lopsided and threatening to fall over.
But no matter how it looked or where you got it, getting your tree home was always a stumper.
My pops would go out to the grocery store, parking lot, pick us out one, we'd tie it to the top of the thing. We'd always tie it wrong, so he'd wait for us to walk away and then he'd retie it,
But the journey wasn't over once the tree arrived in the living room. Now you could add the icing, giving the tree a frosty look. Remember when we were blown away by flocking? It was essentially snow from a spray can.
Now a fascinating man-made snowstorm has blown at the tree.
No, flocking was the best. You're bringing the outdoors inside, so what better way to do it than with flocking?
That blast of artificial Arctic may be an art best left to the professionals.
One year I decided I was going to flock my own tree. I never thought to take it outside, so took it in the house. There was flocking on the trees, on the couch, on the carpet, on the dog, on me, but it was fun.
It was snow to me, baby.
Artificial snow was a flurry of fun, so why not fake the whole tree? A new kind of faux fur let us assemble the tree without ever venturing into the great outdoors.
Just set it up, spend your time with your kids, having a hot toddy and, chilling out, rather than schlepping a tree out of the woods.
The fake trees have been around longer than you might think. The scrawny feather trees date back to the 1880s. A later imitator was made entirely of bottle brushes, but the king of fakes debuted in 1959 when the atomic age gave rise to a shimmering vision of Christmas future.
Wow, it looks like a spaceman dropped it off. First it was kind of a mysterious thing, like, what is this thing?
Some would say aluminum trees are the ultimate in bad taste.
I didn't think much of them at all.
I cannot say that because to me, the aluminum trees are the ultimate in retro kitsch, which to me is excellent taste.
You couldn't string lights on a silver pine. They got too hot, so the color wheel gave it its glitzy glow.
Don't you remember driving around and you'd see these lights just changing colors in people's front windows?
No matter what kind of tree the family chose, we had to spruce it up before adding the ornaments. Garland ran the gamut, from delicate beads to thick ropes of silver and gold. But homemade decorations made the best memories. Who can forget the painstaking process of stringing popcorn?
You have to be very careful. You have to look for the right kernels because you can't just skewer them.
You ate more popcorn than you strung, and so at the end of the night, there wasn't really much to show for, so...
The only thing that looks more retro is tinsel. The real heavy lead stuff was the crown jewel of the mid-century tree. It reflected our flashy fascination with Christmas tree fashion.
I was always into anything shiny, so the more the better. Oh, so much tinsel that you can hardly see the tree, yeah.
Some parents insisted that the placement be precise.
A lot of people like to place it perfectly. A little bit on the inside, a little bit on the outside. I like to throw it as hard as I can.
It was all a matter of taste, both the trimmings and the tree. And in the end, once they were chopped, assembled, dressed up, and decked out, our Christmas trees issued a sparkling invitation to dream about what might eventually appear beneath their branches.
The tree was just magic. That's when the magic started.
It may seem like Americans have always had Christmas trees, but they took a while to catch on. Franklin Pierce was the first president to have a Christmas tree in the White House, and that was back in 1856. Coming up, think back to the ornaments you had on the tree. Each one is a dangling memory.
This is my favorite ornament from my childhood, this little bell.
Reflecting the past, holiday style. Next on Hey, Remember Christmas. Welcome back to Hey, Remember Christmas. Decorating the house for the holidays has always been a family affair, and the biggest job is getting that tree trimmed. It can take a while, especially if you stop and reminisce about every other ornament. It's hard not to, because often those ornaments have a story to tell.
Here's the last one. Where should we put it?
Here, let me put it on.
Hauling out the ornaments each year gets us acquainted with the merry ghosts of Christmas past.
Every time you'd bring up all these things, it was like a new present every year, and you'd forgotten, and it was a big, oh, do you remember this? Do you remember that?
As kids, we didn't take long to zero in on a favorite ornament.
My wife's favorite is a little thing of Rudolph, you know, and the thing lights up on the nose, you know.
High style or humble, eccentric or exquisite, each ornament had a story to tell.
They're like little dough people with brown faces and ballerinas, all different kinds of imagery of people of color.
We loved them all. Even the plain shiny baubles were a blast. Remember mugging in the mirror?
We used to love this, going in and doing this. We would do this for for hours.
But Mom seemed to like it best when we got crafty for Christmas.
There was definitely a lot of my grade school projects on the tree. You know, macaroni with, gold glitter.
Now, if you want to recall store-bought ornaments, just check out this couple's collection. Lisa Bryan Smith and her husband Dick have thousands. And somewhere in these boxes, you're sure to find an ornament you remember from growing up.
They're all divided into types and time periods. Boxes of Dresden ornaments, cotton batting ornaments, figure ornaments, and Dick's family ornaments are separate.
Maybe Grandma had these soft cotton ornaments from the 20s. But we're more likely to remember the silver-lined figures that came in every shape imaginable, from Santa Claus to kitty cats.
The glass figules, what we call the silvered ornaments, they're really beautiful. They are very realistic. The molds are amazing that they're blown into.
Pine cones and hearts were always big sellers, but let's be honest, most kids are going to cling to the memory of the big guy in red.
Santa Claus is number one. Those ornaments, the shapes, the figures, cost more money. So people frequently only had one or two. And if they were only going to have one, they had a Santa Claus.
And you could never get enough of Santa. Every year there was a new version to buy. In the 50s, you might have had a Santa in wax. There aren't that many around today because when they get too hot, they melt.
Unfortunately, most people kept their Christmas decorations in their attics. You know how hot that gets.
You won't have a memory meltdown if your family tree was decked out in glass. From German kugels to the striped baubles from the 40s, something's sure to ring a bell. How about the kind with a jolly jolt of tinsel inside? But there is one problem with glass. Yeah, you remember. Dropping the ball might shatter the joy, but post-war technology provided just the solution in fantastic plastic.
We wanted something new, something different, and plastic gave us great opportunities. So you would see plastic angel ornaments, choir boys, and you'd even see wise men on candles.
But not all plastic is alike. Your memories of these celluloid ornaments of the 40s and 50s might have gone up in smoke.
The problem with celluloid is it's highly flammable.
Since we couldn't help melt them, break them, and burn them, it's a good thing by the 40s and 50s they finally came by the box. And one company dominated the market.
Shiny Bright was one of the most successful companies in the United States with the boxed ornaments.
You probably recall the kind with the fancy flocked scenery, too.
And you would have villages, snowmen. They might say Merry Christmas in stenciling on them. Silent Night was another common phrase that we saw.
And remember the funky glittery ones with the indented centers?
They capture the lights in the room, and they capture colors from the other ornaments and sparkle.
Maybe it was the kooky family down the block that had these Italian ornaments from the 60s.
You can see that they're just pretty much goofy looking, just really exotic, different, and didn't suit everybody's taste.
In truth, you could put just about anything on a tree and call it an ornament. From mittens to candy boxes, birds to fish, plastic elves to Victorian collectibles. Whatever was your cup of tea. But clearly ornaments don't have to be glamorous to wheedle their way into our hearts.
This is my favorite ornament from my childhood, this little bell. And I received her as a present from my music teacher, my piano teacher, Mrs. Stover, when I was 5 years old.
Few of us have as many ornaments as Lissa and Dick, but we all have a treasure trove of memories dangling on the tree, and each one deserves that perfect place of honor.
And I probably take too long to do it because I'm always looking for that perfect spot.
Right there.
Alrighty.
Of course, the right spot for the right ornament is always in the eye of the beholder. Still ahead, we're flipping the switch to bring back the bright lights from holidays past. Remember those great big bulbs? They were hot! All the dazzling memories come bubbling back ahead on Hey Remember Christmas. Welcome back to Hey Remember Christmas. I'm Jill Cordes. Christmas comes at the darkest time of the year, right around the winter solstice. So it's no wonder we love to decorate with lots and lots of twinkling lights. Nowadays, you see the dainty miniature lights everywhere. But back in the 50s and the 60s, it was the bright colored bulbs that made our holidays glow. It's easy to flip the switch on Christmas memories. Just look at the lights that made our holidays sparkle.
A press of the button lights the great tree in New York's Rockefeller Center. Yes, it's Christmas once more.
Christmas lights give off an unmistakable glow that adds more than just a little twinkle to our eye.
Lights are so much a part of Christmas. They're so much a part of us. They're our memories.
For light collector Don Crandall, Christmas has always been a string of megawatt memories.
When I was a child, I was just fascinated with Christmas lights. To me, they've always been reminiscent of something wonderful and comforting.
Ever since the days of Thomas Edison, we've decked the halls with hundreds of sparkling lights, inside and out.
Twinkling lights can turn an ordinary street into a fairyland.
From rooftop to treetop, no outdoor space was out of reach. The results could be magical, and neighbors took notice.
We actually would go driving to see Christmas lights as a family. So we would pile in the car and drive around basically looking for the really hugely overdone houses. That's what it's about.
And count on it, they were out there.
Neighborhoods could almost go into like arms races, break into battle over their decorations. And then some people just went completely crazy.
Whether you were stringing lights outside or in, first you had to deal with a tangled mess.
We put them in there neatly organized, but after jumbling and pushing the box around, they'd always get tangled with each other. So yeah, it would be kind of like pulling them all out and undoing the ball.
Once the lights were untangled, it was smooth stringing, or so we thought. Remember what used to happen when one little light stopped glowing?
When one burned out, they all burned out, and you had to find out which one was the one that burned out.
Hunting for that burnt-out culprit was a hassle your folks wanted to avoid.
Parents would never do that, but the kids would always be out there checking the light bulbs, changing every one. Oh yeah, that was always a good time.
Those lights Dad struggled with changed dramatically over the years. Just a quick look at the vintage boxes brings back memories.
Oh, I wish we could turn the clock back and go to old graphics again. It instantly dates the product, and it gives you a glimpse into life as it was back then.
No doubt the bulbs spark a few memories, too.
One of the oldest things is to have the figural lamps.
The figural bulbs came in lots of shapes, and after the bulb burned out, they could enjoy a second life as an ornament. A more common sight from the 20s to the 60s were strands of colored lights with the nice big fat bulbs.
I prefer the bigger ones. They remind me of my childhood. That's what I saw when I was a kid. To me, that said Christmas.
They were big, but it was never one size fits all.
You had the smallest one, which was the C6, and then you had the C7, and then for decorating outside, you had the C9 bulb.
And it was dangerous to get too drawn in by any of those big, bright lights.
They were hot! You know, the red ones especially, they were humongous. Then you couldn't touch the tree because it was so hot.
The big bulbs were a hot commodity, and you'd find plenty in red, green, and blue. But did your tree ever glow pretty in pink?
If you were doing a retro 50s Christmas, this would be just the thing. Elvis might have had this. Viva Lost Christmas or something.
Maybe your tree was lit up with some other wild lights. By the 1950s, you could get stars, snowballs, even a whirly glow that came with its own spinning top. But when it came to post-war lights, the bubblers were clearly the toast of the town. Introduced in 1945, these bubbly bulbs were the perky picks for millions of buyers.
Well, in around 45, Noma came out with the bubble light, and it was a huge success. It just sold millions of them. Oh, you'd have to be a grouch not to like bubble lights. They're so happy. Look at them.
Although hanging the bubble lights could be a tougher task than your regular colored bulb.
Putting on bubble lights is a little bit art and a little bit science, but you always want to try and get it placed so that they're going to be upright so they can bubble.
And then the question was, did you have enough? There was one way to find out.
The squinty test, I've sworn by it for years. You throw the lights on and just squint your eyes and just see how nicely they're spaced. If it looks like you get good coverage all around, then you're golden.
Bubble lights or star lights, snowballs or whirly glows. With so many lighting choices over the years, it's hard to say what's tasteful and what's tacky. It really comes down to what you grew up with. You can still buy and use the old strings of lights, but collectors suggest you use a dimmer. That way they won't get too hot to handle and they won't burn out so quickly either. Up next, we take a peek into the past to remember the magic on display in the department store windows. Plus, a look back at our obsession with the must-have toy of the year. It's all ahead on Hey Remember Christmas. Welcome back, I'm Jill Cordes. If Christmas is the season of giving, it's also the season of shopping. Remember making that wish list as a kid? Parents could get thrown into a frenzy trying to buy that must-have toy of the season. Well, the hunt was half the fun, especially when downtown shopping was a family affair. Remember the days before there were so many malls in America, when good citizens hit the sidewalks of the big cities to do their holiday shopping?
The annual Christmas shopping spree is bigger and better than ever, according to merchants across the country. Stores are jammed as gift lists are checked off.
People of all ages pack downtown department stores, dressed in their Sunday best.
Have we forgotten Aunt Ruth? What about Cousin Peter? Did you get something for Audrey? It's in one store and out the other.
It was the one time of year that kids begged to go shopping, and the hustle and bustle made the seasonal spree all the more exciting.
My mother would get very busy with shopping. We would go with her, so to learn the art of shopping with my mother was quite an experience.
But shopping wasn't the only department store experience that many of us remember.
The gay bubble of the holiday season floats feather light in the hearts of Kris Kringle's worshippers.
The holiday window displays were so elaborate they drew families from miles around.
We'd go to Chicago every year. We'd do the store windows, and then we'd go to Santa Claus at Marshall Field.
Faces pressed against the glass, kids were mesmerized by the motorized Christmas contraptions.
It was really magical. All these miniature people moving around, and it was really exciting.
There were just so many people and all the smells and the noise and the crowds. We'd go into Manhattan and it was just magic.
Once inside the department stores, even more magic was located in the toy department. After an exhausting day ransacking the department stores, you couldn't help but dream about all the loot Santa might deliver.
The sweet dreams of childhood are filled with visions of sugar plums and the ecstatic pleasures of youth.
Would Santa bring that brand new doll or that swell train set? You could start that wish list as soon as those catalogs arrived in the mail.
And so I would start imagining Christmas probably as soon as the JCPenney catalog came. I don't know when that was.
The Sears catalog, we would get it in the mail, and then we used to be able to pick.
We just look through it and circle everything we wanted and think we were going to get it.
So what did our parents get us? Well, in the 50s and 60s, gifts often reflected the times, and they were pretty gender-specific. Boys usually got a convoy of wheels, from race cars to Tonka trucks. And remember that rootin' tootin' cowboy crowd?
I got cowboy stuff, the chaps and the boots and the hat. I used to have the whole getup.
Gifts for girls made mom the hero. These toys let young ladies mimic the fine art of housekeeping.
This is all before women's liberation, and there were more defined lines for gift giving for boys and for girls.
In the 70s, there were some definite favorites on the wish list. Boys wanted Star Wars stuff.
I wanted a Millennium Falcon from Star Wars so bad.
And girls begged for Barbie bling.
Barbie Dream House, baby.
And Barbie's sports car. Each year, things would add to it.
But it was in the 80s that a new phenomenon was born. Remember the Cabbage Patch Kids? In 1983, the new doll hit the market, and it shook up our holiday shopping habits forever.
At stores across the country, people are waiting in long lines, trying to bribe store employees, even engaging in fisticuffs. It's being called doll mania.
An overactive ad campaign led to an insatiable demand, and people went Cabbage Patch crazy trying to get their hands on one.
Drove all the way to New Jersey, all points. I don't even have any children. I can't believe this rage.
All the toy stores were totally out most of the time, and whenever anybody heard that they had a shipment of Cabbage Patch coming in, it was a mad dash.
This rage is over the Cabbage Patch Kids.
I got other things for Christmas that year, I guess, but I don't remember what because I got my Cabbage Patch Kid and that's all I cared about.
The way they were made ensured that no two were alike, and some clever marketing took it one step further.
They've all got a birth certificate. They've all got their own names. You can adopt them.
The Cabbage Patch Babies gave birth to the must-have mania that continued every Christmas with toys like Tickle Me Elmo. We nearly bounced off the walls hoping for that one toy of the year. Remember the obsession for Rubik's Cube? How about Holly Hobby, Pong, or Beanie Babies? There was surely something on top of that list.
I wanted a speak and spell.
The Super Nintendo, and I was all about the Transformer.
Something that Mom and Dad just had to find, unless you found it first. Did you ever search for the secret Christmas stash? The anticipation was irresistible.
I wanted to know so badly what I was getting for Christmas, and I peeked. And it ruined it for me. I was so sad.
Even though you did kind of know what you were going to find when you opened up the presents, acting surprised was the hardest part.
And our parents knew Christmas was all about the surprises, so they kept up the hunt for the perfect gift. Never mind curious kids. Holiday shopping is a tradition that can't be tampered with. Even if you still prefer downtown department stores to malls, it's tough to find everything you need for the kids there. Most of those big department stores abandoned their toy sections years ago. Coming up, we tune into Family Time. Remember caroling door to door? Plus, that flurry of festivities on Christmas Eve, including the big wait for Santa. That's next on Hey Remember Christmas. The big build-up to Christmas Eve always brought a flurry of bright lights and sparkling decor. But what do we remember most? Usually, it's the family time.
I think that Christmas is a time when families come together, and that's what makes it so special.
We'd savor the season together, baking cookies, decorating the tree, or taking in a major holiday event on the town.
The holiday season is ushered in with everyone in a jovial mood.
The big stars and the big shows were fun. But some of our favorite performers were all in the family. Remember those Christmas pageants? We could get pretty elaborate with the costumes and props.
I played a chipmunk. I played an Alvin. I wanted my hula hoop.
I still want my hula hoop.
Man, remember that song?
From chipmunks to choir boys, Christmas and caroling just go together.
I loved Christmas caroling.
The music. It's all about the music for me. Whenever I hear Christmas music, I think of my family and just remember those great times.
But sometimes those warm, fuzzy memories of caroling aren't in tune with the reality.
We went singing our Christmas carols full of joy. And these old people were looking at us like, honey, you cannot sing.
Not everyone was quite so blunt.
We started singing and, well, then they just walked away.
Okay, time to take a hint and turn on the record player or flip on the TV.
The Christmas programs on TV were a huge...
Every sitcom had a Christmas special, and that allowed us a little festive family time in front of the tube. Remember all those variety shows coming along with Perry Como, Andy Williams, and Bing Crosby? Had their own crop of Christmas specials.
Think of the other ones. Frosty and Rudolph, yes, we watched those too.
Well, that's what made all these things so special. There were no videotapes, there were no VCRs, you couldn't watch it anytime you wanted.
Maybe there was one exception. You didn't need to set your clock to watch this movie with the family.
It's a Wonderful Life.
In the 70s, it aired constantly during December. You had to be asleep to miss it.
You saw it by default. It was on so frequently.
By the time Christmas Eve arrived, we were too busy for television. Now the relatives began to arrive, gathering for a big holiday feast. After the last course, well, each family had its own tradition. Maybe you were off to church, or maybe you had to handle a few last-minute details.
Normally, you wrap the presents Christmas Eve, so you hear stuff all over the house. Do you have the scissors? Where's the paper?
Gift wrapping was not a casual event.
You know, there was the tape wars. Where's my tape dispenser?
It was too late for wrapping in some households, and more like the time to rip open.
We always open them Christmas Eve.
We would open all our gifts on the 24th, the night of the 24th.
We were the one on Christmas Eve, everything else Christmas morning.
If you could only open one, you wanted the best, unless Mom had other practical plans.
Every year we would get our brand new jammies.
Yeah, I got a few pair of Christmas pajamas.
Those matching jammies sure did make a great Christmas Eve photo op. Then, as it came time for bed, we had to make sure our stockings were hung by the chimney with care.
Everybody had their own color.
But I was the youngest, you know, so I got the biggest stocking.
A friend of the family made all of our stockings. My grandma made it, and I still have that stocking. That's the one we hang up over our fireplace.
We were so psyched about Santa, we could only try and wind down.
We would read the night before Christmas, and we would read another, Christmas story, and then we'd go to sleep.
Well, easier said than done.
Who doesn't recall the almost painful anticipation of the night before Christmas, with its promise of new toys?
Yeah, night before Christmas, the tradition we had was my mom would say, "Go to bed." I'd say no.
Christmas Eve is one of the hardest nights to fall asleep for a kid because you're so listening. Was that reindeer hooves on the roof? But then there's also this other part of you that knows that he can't come unless you fall asleep.
I knew that Santa couldn't come till I fell asleep, so I tried really hard.
It's a dilemma, only solved when pure fatigue takes over.
And we would fall asleep, with one ear listening.
Finally, Santa could come. Maybe you never did get much sleep, but you sure didn't need an alarm clock to get up bright and early on Christmas morning. Still ahead, we tear off the bows and rip through the highlights of the big day itself.
As soon as I saw some kind of light, I go wake everybody up. Let's go!
How early did you force your parents out of bed? A rollicking retro holiday, next on Hey Remember Christmas. Welcome back to Hey Remember Christmas. After an exhausting season of pageants, tree trimmings, and visits to Santa, the big day finally arrives. Time for those visions of sugar plums to give way to the real thing, the stuff in the stockings. The only question was, how early could we get started? It's the calm before the storm. Santa has finished his rounds. Parents have assembled the toys, wrapped the gifts, and tied each bow. But the peace could never last long.
Wake up at 4:30 to crack the dawn.
It was always dark.
5:36.
6. That is the proper time to get up for opening presents.
As soon as I saw some kind of light, I go wake everybody up. Let's go!
Then it was a mad dash to see what Santa brought.
The parents might have made some coffee, I don't know, that didn't concern me.
Cereal? Don't need it. Oatmeal? Don't need it. You know, I need some presents.
We would run out into the living room, and we would just stop. And we were like, oh my gosh, Mom, look at this, what Santa brought us.
It was a thrill unstuffing the stockings, though in truth, even big socks don't hold all that much.
We got an orange and apple every year.
Usually smaller stuff like barrettes, a little piece of jewelry or a little tiny toy.
I get a yo-yo every year.
Oh my goodness, it wasn't cold. Balls and jacks and crayons.
In some families, Santa didn't stop with the kids.
Parents have the stockings. The pets have to have a stocking. Everyone in the household must have a stocking.
For grown-ups, maybe just a little munch, while kids got a bunch. Then it was time to play with the stuff from Santa while you contemplated the rest of the loot under the tree. At this point, families divide into two camps.
And then it was the chaos under the tree.
No, it was order, because otherwise it's over too fast.
You know, it took us like minutes.
You have to take turns, so everyone can enjoy your bliss in opening the package.
Control or chaos? That's the classic Christmas question. Either way, you got to the goods. The bikes, the games, the race cars, and of course the dolls all gave kids a thrill. But predicting a favorite is almost impossible.
One of the favorite gifts that we had is what we call the Plunderbox. They were promotional items, like little pads with paper and pens and key rings and other such things that, you wouldn't think would be great. We loved it.
Love it or not, you had to act the part, but we could spot the fakers.
When it's met with, this is nice. Thank you.
I would open up a box, I would see the shirt. Wow, Mom, it's a shirt, and throw it to the side.
Clothes were the worst, really. And you open it up and you're like, big green sweater.
Clothes for Christmas. I don't think my parents dared do that.
Maybe the best gifts were the ones that kept kids busy on Christmas Day, like building sets and ride-on toys. We got tons of stuff, but as kids, is it ever enough?
Then you did the collective, is that all?
Parents could only take a breath before getting tied up translating assembly instructions.
And part A is not to be found. Of course, the whole thing will not go together without part A.
And let's hope you didn't forget the batteries.
Getting a toy on Christmas that was a battery-operated toy that Santa had forgotten to put the batteries into, it was the ultimate in frustration.
Well, there was always something else to do. If there was snow outside, skis or a sled were always a good bet. In Hawaii, though, a surfboard was better.
Christmas in Hawaii, no snow, lots of surf, wintertime swell, that's my favorite.
Christmas activities were endless, and a brand new camera helped you capture the action. But how did you share all this with faraway family?
After the presents were open, when things had calmed down just a little bit, just enough, the parents would start making long-distance phone calls.
You have to try to anticipate who's going to call first, so you've opened their gift before they call, so you can tell them how much you like it.
Back in the 50s and 60s, long distance was a big deal.
Okay, we're calling the cousins.
Everything stopped for a long-distance phone call.
It was always like, quit playing with your Easy Bake Oven and come say hello to your grandma. And it was like...
After waiting a year, it's all over so quickly. But there's always time to savor the moment.
I'm going to use the word afterglow. You know, when the presents are all finally open and you're sitting there in this sea of toys and paper and bows, and it's just like this feeling of just extreme contentment.
Beyond the crazy trees, the vintage ornaments, the big bright lights, and the load of gifts, Christmas memories really boil down to time with family.
The things that I remember most, the music in the air, the beautiful Christmas tree with all the lights and welcoming family into our home and just making a beautiful day.
Traditions are passed down one generation to the next, built on a lifetime of happy Christmas memories. We hope you've enjoyed reliving those memories of Christmas past. And by the way, if you decide to put up an aluminum tree this year, you won't be alone. Retro is in, and these are more popular than ever. I'm Jill Hortis. Thanks for joining us, and happy holidays.